Hello, this is Angela with Parker's Hausfrau. On this channel, we talk about ecological and frugal homemaking, and today's video is no exception. I want to walk you through my process today of how I used 75 cents worth of thrifted and repurposed materials to make myself a really useful apron that has a little hidden secret in it. But I also just want to talk about what it means to be a homemaker, what it means to be a complex individual that has hobbies and interests, and how that can look a little bit different when you are a professional homemaker. So I have to say that an apron is one of the most invaluable tools that a homemaker can have. It's not just a garment, it's not an accessory, it's a really functional item. So I have aprons for the kitchen, aprons for the garden. I love making aprons. They're easy, simple sewing projects. It's a great way to use up scrap fabric because you're going to be taking an apron and you're going to be wiping your hands on it, wiping off surfaces. You're going to be using it as a utilitarian garment. And so because of that, I find that I don't want to buy new expensive material. I want to use thrifted material. I want to use free material. I want to cut up something else that might have a big hole in it or might be worn out in a spot, cut it up, repurpose it, and use it as an apron. So the apron that I'm making today, in this video, I used a 75-cent 100% linen pillow cover that I got at the thrift store. And it was a Eurosham, which is 24 by 24 inches. And again, 75 cents on sale. And I cannot pass up linen. I can always use linen in sewing projects. So it is reversible. So here's the one side. Here's the other. And I had to go back and forth on which side I wanted to be the front. And then because it's a Eurosham, it's square, obviously. And it needs a place for the pillow to go in. And this one had a zipper. And so for me, I thought, okay, well, I want to turn this into an apron. Should I just cut the zipper off and then sew the layers together? And then I thought, you know what? This actually makes a built-in pocket right off the bat. I have a pocket where I can stash things in my apron and then just zip it up, which especially for a garden apron where I might be picking a whole lot of pears or, like Inca berries or something like that. It's really, really useful. I thought, well, I'll just keep the zipper in as a design element so that I have a pre-made large pocket in order to stash things, in order to give myself an extra set of hands, basically. In fact, that's one of the things I think is most important about having an apron. It can serve as an extra set of hands. So for the waistband portion of this apron, and the tie, I actually used a t-shirt that came in a bag of clothes I got from my local free cycle group. And I noticed that the shirt had some stains up at the top and I thought, well, I don't really want to regift this to anybody or like put it back on the group, but there's so much useful fabric in it, I bet I can use it for something else. So it sat around in my sewing pile for a while. And then when I got this beautiful kind of sagey green linen, I thought, oh, this is going to pair perfectly. And I definitely had enough fabric to use for the waistband. It does mean there are some seams in it, but that's okay because I'm using free materials. So total investment, 75 cents. Now, if you can't find a Eurosham at the thrift store, you can cut yourself 2 squares of fabric, 24.5 inches by 24.5 inches, sew them together, flip them right sides out and top stitch them together. But this was already pre-sewn for me, which was really nice. So
at first, I couldn't decide which side to have facing out on the apron, but ultimately settled on using the zipper side as the front. I put the zipper on the left-hand side, zipping vertically. For the waistband and ties, cut 3-inch wide strips twice the length of your waist measurement. Now, if you want to have a bigger bow with a longer drape at the back, cut 2.5 times your waist measurement. You can see here, because I was using a button-down shirt, I had to cut multiple strips and then seam them together. So don't forget, if you are piecing together smaller sections of fabric, to include 1/4-inch seam allowances. In the end, I did add the extra length of fabric to make for longer bows, as you can see here in the finished apron. My sewing machine made quick work of this section. I sewed each strip together to make one long strip. I was careful to save the ends of the shirt that were already finished to be the tail ends of my ties. Then I took the long strip, folded it in half, right sides together, and sewed it together to make a tube. I used the safety pin technique to flip the long tube right side out. Then I ironed it flat and top stitched it. The rest of this project was done by hand. For me, I feel that hand sewing and sewing machine sewing are two different hobbies, and I enjoy both of them equally. For this project, I used mostly hand sewing, and that's because I was stuck in the car while a family member was at a lengthy medical appointment, and I couldn't go inside because of Delta, and I thought this is the perfect time to work on sewing this apron. So I got most of it done by hand, sitting in the car, listening to podcasts. In order to have the apron lay nicely and not just be a giant boxy square, I added 2 pleats to the front. You can see here I folded the fabric in half and then in quarters, and at the mark where the quarter line fold is, I added a pleat. On each side, I folded the pleats facing outward so that it was a flattering shape. I pinned and stitched these by hand, being sure to really reinforce them on both sides. Now, depending on your body shape and size, you may want to add a second set of pleats to make the waistband even narrower. I suggest doing that inside the first set. I really love the portability of hand sewing. I find it is nice to be able to take my project with me and not have to be tied to one of my sewing machines. I also love the fact that I don't have to deal with any frustrations of tension or issues with a sewing machine. It's just me and the needle and my thimble and the fabric. I think it's so important during times of heightened stress, when so many factors are outside of our control, that we make intentional efforts to engage in hobbies and activities that help bring us peace and help recenter us and give us an outlet for our stress. And for me, hand sewing has definitely been one of those activities. As I'm sewing the pleats, I just check intermittently to make sure that the drape looks good and that the pleats are laying nicely. Here you can see the finished pleats. I had no trouble getting them done during my wait at the appointment. Next came adding the waistband. I laid it over the front of the apron and tacked it down by hand, being very careful to just pass my needle and thread through the front layer of the apron so the stitches didn't show on the back. I don't know what it is about working on knitting or sewing, but both of my dogs take it as an open invitation to nuzzle my work until I stop what I'm doing and give them scritches and attention. I really enjoy the sound of the thread being drawn through the fabric. It's just such a meditative, repetitive, soothing sound.
I think it's really important that folks remember that every profession has drudgery. Every profession has tasks which we must undertake that are not particularly stimulating, right? Homemaking is no different, but I think there can be this kind of cultural stereotype that homemakers enjoy the drudgery, that we are people who feel fulfilled by dusting wainscoting and scrubbing bathroom floors and folding laundry, and that's just absolutely not true. Homemakers are complex individuals just like anybody else. Just because our vocation is one that is unpaid doesn't mean that we have any less need for exploring our interests and having hobbies and having passions. So for me, is sewing a requisite skill to be a homemaker? No, it's not. There's lots of really skilled homemakers who don't sew very much. My mother didn't sew all that much. She was a competent seamstress, but she just didn't enjoy doing it that much. But for me, sewing is a big hobby. I love to quilt. I love to make clothes for my kids. I love to sew. And for me, I enjoy sewing as much as a necessary skill for homemaking or a supplemental skill for homemaking as a hobby that I really get a lot out of. So sometimes I do find excuses to make things that I could purchase, but also that helps me be more frugal, right? If I can take something and cut it up and re-sew it and repurpose it, or I can take something at the thrift store and, cut it up and use the fabric for another purpose, like this apron, then I'm saving money and I'm being able to not only use my hobby as something that I find fulfilling and enriching in my life, but something that creates useful elements in my home for my family. So I just want to encourage you, if you have hobbies that you can fold into your homemaking that bring a benefit to your homemaking, then that's awesome. That's fabulous. Go for it. But your hobbies don't have to be ones that are an augmentation to your homemaking, right? Your hobby can just be something that you get a lot out of, that helps you feel more intellectually stimulated or helps you feel more enriched in a day that may be a lot of scrubbing floors, a day that may be a lot of washing diapers. So our hobbies can be ways that we not only augment our homemaking and we bring more frugality and more eco-consciousness to our homemaking, but they don't have to be that at all. They can just be something that you get great value out of, that enriches your life. So I just want to encourage you, if folks think that your homemaking is all there is to you, that's not true. And if there are hobbies that you have that don't fall under the auspices of homemaking, that's awesome. That's totally fine. I have all kinds of hobbies that are not domestic in nature. And I just want to encourage you, you can have those too. You can access whatever you need to make your life as enriching and fulfilling as it should be. That's one of the most beautiful things about being a homemaker, is that we picked a vocation where we can carve out time in our day to spend on our hobbies, to spend on those things that enrich our lives, be it reading novels, be it sewing, be it gardening, be it playing sports. That being a homemaker as a vocation is something that should empower you to get in touch with your hobbies, and hobbies should enrich your life and should feed back into helping you be a more focused, a more centered, and a more dedicated homemaker. They should enrich your quality of life in a way that helps you do your profession better and helps you enjoy your life better. My teenager just got home, so I'm going to say hi to her. I'll be back in a minute. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and click subscribe and share it with your friends. I'll be back next week. I upload every Friday. Thanks.